One of the ways the Goblin Emperor works is by taking standard fictional conventions that are very familiar to the reader, both from the from the genre fiction world and from the fantasy world and outside, and then slowly, subtly, and in no not in any showy way, doing something completely different with them. Now, a kind of paint by numbers formulaic fantasy novel published in the 21st century in America is what is going to have a lot of very, very familiar features. It's selling the familiarity. And then, look, one of the ways you work is you take existing conventions and then doing something more or less, or maybe just a tiny bit original with them, tw- tweaking it a little bit, doing something different. In a bad, or in a, how should I put this, in a routine and workmanlike fantasy novel in the 21st century, you get a lot of very, very familiar conventions with some superficial variations to make it feel like it's different this time. Though really, the customer is there for the safeness and the familiarity. So this is why sometimes it's like, oh, in fantasy, anything can happen, or except only like the same six or eight things can happen over and over again. This novel takes familiar tropes, sometimes very, very familiar tropes, very widespread tropes, not because of things that allow us to write. If there are no conventions, you don't know how to navigate the text at all. Things that are familiar enough to us that would give us a grounding, like, yes, we've met characters like this in books before. Even if we don't immediately consciously recognize this, we get that character again, and then does something pretty profoundly different in most cases. So we have a character, by no means the first character, whose father the king, has recently been murdered and sets out to do something about it. Meet Hamlet, meet Oedipus, meet Bruce Wayne, meet Enigma. Like, okay, here's the thing. We have a main character whose father has been murdered one page before the book begins, and who doesn't actually have much of an emotional response to that. Not because he's unhealthy, but because he is healthy. He didn't have a relationship with that person who's actually gonna go try to solve his father. He's trying to solve his father's murder, but he is not motivated by that. That is not his primary motivation. He's not setting out to do that. It's actually just part of his normal duty oriented response to being emperor. It's like, I'm going to do the right thing, obviously. And he actually has a talk to Kelleher, who is his chosen detective. It's like, yeah, I did it. I want this solved for the people who were standing next to my father and died because they were standing next to him. I want it for the subjects who didn't want the emperor to fall burning from the sky and who are afraid because they don't know if the next emperor will be murdered. I'm doing this for the kingdom. He doesn't have anything. It's not, his father has been murdered, and it's not particularly personal to him. Not even that he resents the guy. He had it coming. It's like he doesn't feel much of one way or another. That is very different. That's a very different character, but also it is a possible thing in the world. It could be like that. In the meantime, the character's fathers have been killed, is deeply mourning and grieving his mother, who died much earlier, totally from natural causes, but whom he grieves and misses every day. This is much bigger deal than the murdered father. We have a detective. We have a detective who's fallen on hard times and is feeling cynical and embittered and has lost his faith in his profession and has a broken heart. All those things. We've seen that person over and over again. We haven't seen it like this, right? We have not seen it like this. That character doesn't is marginalized in certain ways, is subordinated to a larger story, and the story won't quite follow the same mystery beats. I want to point out, poor Keller, who is trying to solve this crime and does solve it, also is at one point, and again, don't, this is not a video to watch before you're done reading the novel, is gotta rush. I found out the killer and I've got to tell the emperor in time, and he is not in time. It doesn't matter. Like the emperor, like I gotta tell, I gotta tell the emperor who the real killer is before the real killer tries to kill the emperor. Oh, but actually, I didn't do that, and the real killer did try to kill the emperor, and the emperor has excellent bodyguards. Actually, they're really very good. Things go in a totally different direction. Because our main character's society is so stultified and manners bound and hidebound and traditionalist and driven by custom. He's in a politically arranged marriage with someone who has no seeming interest in him and who he was picked for the politics. But when he sees that other special someone, his heart does a little, skips a couple beats, gets a little syncopation going. How is that going to go? Not the way you do it ever. 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 It's actually radical how much Addison doesn't follow that standard plot line. That she takes the character types who would normally go along this plot path and she takes them on another plot path where they do something else that is at least as plausible and as compelling. I want to talk a little bit about her narrative skill and like, well, I'm talking about this. Let me let me let me play my middle page game. Yes? This now Addison marks the structure of a novel various ways. She divides her 35 chapters into 5 uneven sections, and like, okay, you should look at the beginning and end of sections, the beginning and end of chapters. These are real structural units she's using. As I said in the video about chaptering, she also stretches out some chapters to great length and makes others very short. But all that said, and the middle is not the only place, two-thirds through, a quarter through, these are places to look. I'm going to just do the middle chapter, middle page technique. Fortunately, we have 35 chapters. That makes number 18 the middle one. Oh, okay, which is the beginning of part 3 of 5. Okay. He was called the Winter Emperor, for his reign was brought with early snow and frost. And we get a lot of catch up, and we're doing a bunch of stuff. It's been he gets engaged to be married here. We there's actually a lot of he has a chat with his father's first wife. He has a chat with his nephew, who is his heir, who would have been preferred as the heir by the father. Okay. Um, this novel ends on page 445, but the narrative only starts on page 27 because we have to have some title pages and we have to have a glossary and we have to have a pronunciation guide. So, with a little arithmetic, that tells me the middle page is 236, very close to the end of chapter 18. I want to talk about 236. I want to talk about page 237. And like, just pay attention to what's happening here dead in the middle, not because it obviously announces itself as key to the plot, but because right here in the middle of the book, you can see Addison working on 2 important plot or structural strands. The top of 236, Mary Kelleher, Thara Kelleher, our supernatural detective, down on his luck, embittered, doesn't believe in the truth, tells him, "Yeah, I've tried to find the truth. You're not going to want it." Is getting browbeaten by Maya. He says, "We're sorry, Serenity, but there's not. We can only work to the best of our abilities." And here is Maya. We know emperors did not apologize, and he remembered Idris saying that the one thing Varanechabel could not forgive was a witness to his mistakes. We are sorry for implying that you are not so doing. Kelleher's eyes widened and he bowed his head, masking his reaction. Serenity, we shall report to you as soon as we have any information. We thank you, Mir Kelleher. Maya said and sank wearily back in his chair as Kelleher bowed and left the Mykenthelian. Maya had been emperor, had been Edrahasvar's instead of simply Maya Dresser for over a month now. The business of ruling Etheravaz had become easier than it was tedious. Okay, we go into almost 2 pages of summary. Maya seems tired, he seems beaten. He actually just made a major step. Again, how he's doing has very little bearing to how he feels like he's doing most of the time. 2 things are happening there. One is, I'll talk about the bigger one first. One of Maya's key political skills is strategically lowering himself. Condescending in the positive Jane Austen way, it's inevitable to compare this book to Jane Austen, and clearly Addison has read a lot of Jane Austen. People inside the genre read books outside the genre all the time, even if people outside the genre don't read anything inside it. In the 200 years ago, condescension was a positive word. It meant, even though it meant talking to somebody like an equal, even though you're socially much higher than they are, right? Like, it's like a regular, oh, Mr. Darcy acted like a regular person for once. Condescension. He came down with us. This has turned into condescension means like, okay, you're acting like we're all chummy, though you're really letting me know that you're just doing this act to show what a good sport you are because you're so much above me. Who wouldn't enjoy that? But this is condescension. The good one. Maya's like, okay, the rule is that the emperor never apologizes. Somebody's like, you know what? I was wrong. I'm sorry. That's fine, right? He's open and vulnerable. He admits mistakes in a way that his father didn't. And that is actually both more human and nicer, but also much more politically astute. Like, yes, that's true. I did it. It's okay. Like, okay. Kalahar's surprised. That is a moment of like, there are moves like this all the way through. These kind of instinctive, but also deeply strategic admissions. Right? Yeah, I'm wrong. Yes. Concessions. Sure. He stays on top because he's actually more flexible. It's like, yeah, I'm not right all the time. You're right. Okay. Right. His authority only gets stronger rather than more rigid and brittle. This is also a key moment in the Kelleher strand. One of the things that is happening is, yes, yes, Maya is trying to solve his father's murder. Rather, Maya has delegated the task of solving his father's murder to Kelleher, who starts out deeply embittered, has no interest in Emperor Edrahasavar, and makes it very plain he's only doing this because he's told to. He doesn't even think it's a good. He doesn't want to. Doesn't think it's a good idea. Maya converts Kelleher over the course of the novel into a true believer who is deeply loyal and is committed. He takes a beaten and cynical character who is only obeying because it's the rules, and turns him into someone who's got conviction again, who has forgiven himself for his previous crimes, who actually believes in himself and his calling again. He doesn't just get given Maya doesn't just give this person an order, he gives him a mission. He gives him a life mission. In the end, like, Kelleher's gonna go off. You took a wrecked detective and you totally refurbished him and sent him out in the world. It's a grander version of what he does in chapter 2 to the depressed and demoralized airship crew, who he turns around and makes like their high morale, high effective, right? Like, he actually changes the direction of the individuals he's leading and helps them believe in themselves and their cause, right? That is his amazing skill. Okay. And that happens halfway through. Then, having had, again, the way this novel works is we don't really notice how big Maya's victories are until they've already happened. We have several paragraphs of like narrative thing. Okay, like, it's hard to manage this court. He's been emperor for only a month. He's been in for a whole month, only a month. He's actually making. He thinks it's slow. It's super fast progress. The Lord Chancellor Chevar is still intractable, hostile, but not so. But like, he can't replace him. We have two paragraphs about the social difficulties of going to these salons, these parties with the other aristocratic kids. He doesn't know how to talk to them, and they're two of the different rivals for his empress, or one of them is being grouchy about it. Maya tried to stick to neutral territory, and then actually I want to point. Okay, we're done with the first half of the novel. Page 237 starts the second half of the novel. What happens in page 237? Another important plot happens. Min Vechin, who is Maya's glamour, sexy opera star crush, who is kind of floating around and making him and helping him socially in this difficult thing. He had no idea. It was restful and she was beautiful, and he thought she was flirting with him, although he had no idea how to respond. She made him feel almost normal, almost as if he belonged. Okay. And then one evening, After Minvetchin had drifted gracefully away for the third or fourth time, Dak Osman Saradin approached him. She curtsied in a sweep of bronze and red purple, but she was frowning, and Maya was not entirely surprised when she opened on the attack. But he was surprised when she said bluntly, "Serenity, Minvetchin is using you." "Of course she is," Maya agreed. Dak Osman Saradin's eyebrows shot upward, and Maya was unable to keep his bitterness pent decently between his teeth. "How stupid you must believe us to be, to think we were unable to discern that for ourselves. We thank you." She looked as if she'd just been bitten by a cushion. Serenity did not mean. She stopped herself, and he watched as her colorless skin flushed a hard, painful red. "She's blushing hard like a Jane Austen heroine. You don't have to read Jane Austen, I'll tell you this. They blush a lot. Yes, there's a lot of blushing. They're uptight, they have very restrictive manners, and then they blush. We beg your pardon, you're correct. We have not been spoken to." And then, when Doc Osmond started and raised her head, there was a light in her vivid eyes that hadn't been there before. And when she spoke, her speech was faster, more clipped, and rich in animation. It was previously like, actually, it's another moment where Maya has let down his guard, and it's been super effective. She's using me. Yes, she's using me. Clearly, you think I'm an idiot. Thanks. And this gets through. He's actually in this very chapter. Casero Carrican, his fiance, his future wife to whom he's already committed. We've already in this chapter we've had like the ceremony where she just gives him the stone face. He's tried to write her a heartfelt letter. She's ignored it. Right. This is the moment we start to get through to her, and there are several more moments. But this important plot motif, the relationship between Maya and his bride, his betrothed. Um, he is already, and he is already before this happens. He is already locked into the marriage. There is no, they are legally all but married. The consummation can happen after the book is over, but they're on their way. And the second half of the novel is when Addison decides to start springing her deeply unlikely, deeply unconventional love story. We are usually in our culture super against arranged marriages. Here is the story of an arranged marriage that's gonna work. That's gonna work out. These two crazy kids just might make it happen. I'm sorry, I rephrased that. These two surprisingly mature and emotionally grounded kids are gonna make it happen. I mean, those crazy kids, I give it 6 months top, but Maya and Casero, they're actually more and more clearly a good couple, well matched. Going to be, is it a romantic love match? It is not. There's nothing romantic like that. Um, What is the opera star like Min Vetchin doing here? Like she is a few things, and I want to say here characters in books, and one of the reasons I made you read that little bit of props morphology of the folktales, not because this is a folktale. It is not. This is a novel. This is a highly constructed, artful, modern literary text. It is not an oral folktale told by Russian peasants back in the day. But Prop points out that like characters are not actually people. They're designed as people are meant to feel as they're plot functions. One of the things that Min Vetchin does is to be a distractor. Oh, look, she's the one in the romantic comedy who looks like the good idea, but isn't. No, this is the one. This over here, this is the one, not the gorgeous socially adept one who you don't really know, and who the novel makes clear it would be like wrong to sleep with because of the power differential. Like that's not so romantic. No, no, it's your peer and co-conspirator who is always like who's increasing through the second half of the novel, like offering to stab people for him, although she's never actually going to do that. One of the things Minvetchin does as a character, one of her plot functions, is to be a distractor and foil from Castero, from the fiance. The other thing she does is to be a go-between that connects Maya to other characters. One of her functions is to connect him to other characters. She does that with the clockmakers. He needs to find out what's going on with the clockmakers, and she makes that happen. Um, she also here is the excuse for the actual romance, the actual lovers in the novel, to actually have a real talk. For a second, she made the future empress a little jealous, right? Like, okay, and like the little empress wanted to be helpful or whatever, condescending, whatever that is. She prompted him. That is what Minvetchin did. Um, because Thero is actually not utilitarian. She does not help. She never helps Maya to any other goals. She is a goal in herself. The idea of she is the prospect of a happy, stable partner, peer-based marriage. Um, she's always threatening to stab people because actually he does not need her to do that in any way. He doesn't need her to do anything except talk to him and support him. She's the goal. Before I go in this minute longer video, let me talk about another character who is you should think about in terms of plot function. There is Kasoru, um, the the Dowager Empress, the widowed Empress, Maya's father's his father's too damn many wife, right? Like that's like okay, right? Who functions in a couple ways. She is there as a model of what you don't want your empress to be, what the kind of person she is a symbol of what everything you Maya would not want his marriage to be like. She is literally a foil for Cathero, who like hates her, who was told to be friends with her and won't. Like that's a kind of clear pairing. Like, no, okay, the Empress I would never ever want to be married to, who I really just need to get out of the room, cannot get along with the person I'm probably going to spend my life with and have children with. Kusura also is here to connect two particular characters who aren't particularly who to make those two characters go together. She is the go-between in various ways between Kalahar the detective and Maya the protagonist. She is not intending to do that. It's also important to remember separate plot function from what the character's intentions or motivations are. A sophisticated writer like Addison, who's also been reading Jane Austen, who's actually very good at this move, can make a character function in a particular way, even though the character intended to do something else. Because Soro is just making trouble and being a drama queen or the drama empress. What she's actually doing is that creating lots of friction and drama that make Maya and Mercalahare have to cover for each other, intervene. They get closer and closer primarily because they have to fix some little drama of the day that Kasuru is causing. She is an important plot mechanism. Does the character want to do that? The imaginary person, want to do that? No, but she's not a person. She's part of this wonderful verbal machine we call a novel. And she is actually what keeps two of these important male characters. She's what puts them together and makes them closer.